When the Colorado Avalanche were swept in the Western Conference Finals in the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs, it marked the 13th consecutive season of the President's Trophy winners, the award given to the team that finishes at the top of the regular season standings, failing to win the Stanley Cup, or even making the final. And if you ask every hockey fan, it's because of a curse. But is the President's Trophy curse real, or is it just a recent trend? Before we get into if the curse is real, it is best to go over how far the teams who win the trophy go in the playoffs, and how the best seasons in history turned out. The trophy was first awarded in 1985-86, exactly 40 years ago. Out of the 39 recipients of the award, only 8 of them have won the Stanley Cup. 3 winners lost in the finals, and 8 winners lost in the first round of the playoffs. The teams with the 10 most points in a single season in NHL history didn't win the Stanley Cup, and 3 of the 4 best seasons in NHL history points-wise resulted in the team getting eliminated in the first round. Since the Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup in 2012-13, the President's Trophy winner has failed to make the Stanley Cup Finals. But when we analyze this curse, we have to view specific periods of time, rather than the entire 40-year history of the trophy as a whole. There are 2 separate 4-year spans of President's Trophy winners that I'd like to highlight. From the 98-99 season to 01-02, and from 08-09 to 2011-12. From 99 to 02, 3 of the 4 President's Trophy winners went on to win the Stanley Cup. The 99 Dallas Stars, the iconic 2001 Colorado Avalanche, and the 02 Red Wings won the Cup. But none of them really breezed through the playoffs. Each of these teams had at least 2 series go to 6 games, and they all had at least 1 series go to 7. The one team from this 4-year span that didn't win the Stanley Cup was the 2000 Blues, who lost in 7 games in the first round to San Jose. But I'm sure that after the Red Wings won in 02, there was probably nobody having a conversation about the President's Trophy being a curse. However, the same cannot be said about the other 4-year span, when 3 winners got bounced in the first round. The 09 Sharks lost to Anaheim in 6 games, the 2010 Capitals blew a 3-1 series lead to Montreal, and the Vancouver Canucks finished top of the league in both 2011 and 2012, in 2011 losing the final in 7 games, and in 2012 losing in 5 games in the first round to the eventual Stanley Cup champion LA Kings. But these 2 spans are before the Blackhawks won the Cup in 2013, so a lot of fans probably won't tell you about the 4-year span of losses when talking about the trophy's curse. However, they will definitely tell you about the record-breaking seasons of Boston and Tampa Bay, which have amplified the belief in this curse tremendously. The 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning and the 2022-23 Boston Bruins are the epitome of the President's Trophy curse, and I'll leave it up to the comments to decide which one was more heartbreaking. Tampa Bay became only the second team ever to win 62 games, finishing with 128 points and a record of 62, 16, and 4. In the first round, they faced the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had never won a playoff series in their entire history. In Game 1, Tampa blew a 3-0 lead. In Game 2, they lost 5-1. Game 3 was close, but they lost 3-1. And in Game 4, after coming back from down 3-1, they went down 4-3 late in the second period, then proceeded to give up 3 empty net goals, losing 7-3. The Lightning became the only President's Trophy winner in history to be swept in the first round of the playoffs, marking the most embarrassing playoff performance by a President's Trophy winner. 4 seasons after Tampa became historic victims to the curse, Boston followed. This Bruins team was possibly the greatest regular season team in NHL history, as they set a record in points with 135, finishing with a record of 65, 12, and 5. They broke plenty of records along the way as well. The most consecutive home wins to start the season with 14, the fastest team to reach 80 and 100 points, and being the fastest team to reach 50 wins. Boston also won their first 22 home games before they lost a game in regulation. With their absolute dominance in the regular season, it makes their loss in the playoffs the dirtiest work of the curse. Boston took a 3-1 series lead in the first round against Florida, but nobody expected what came after. Boston lost Game 5 in overtime 4-3. Then after taking a 5-4 lead in Game 6 with a shorthanded goal with less than 10 minutes left, they gave up 3 unanswered goals to lose 7-5. And then in the iconic Game 7, after they were trailing 2-0, Boston battled back to take a 3-2 lead, but Brandon Montour tied the game with exactly 1 minute left in the third period. Then in overtime, a goal that every hockey fan remembers watching.
Tkachuk hit by Carlo, puck pops in the air, lands behind the net, right at the side of the goal. They chop away at it. Tkachuk keeping it alive. Carlo can't grab it. It comes to Verhaeghe. Turns, shoots, scores! Carter Verhaeghe! And the Panthers have eliminated the Boston Bruins!
And so, the greatest regular season team in NHL history was eliminated in 7 games. So let's go back to the question. Is the President's Trophy curse real, or is it just a recent trend? The curse is certainly not applicable to the entire history of the trophy. I doubt that there was much talk of a curse when 3 out of 4 years the teams won the cup. As for the 4-year span when 3 teams got knocked out in the first round, it could be seen as just a bad stroke of luck. But it's impossible to ignore that for the past 13 seasons, the President's Trophy winner failed to even reach the final. There are 2 large reasons fans have posed as to why this is the case. The main conclusion that many seem to have made is that the NHL has more talent than it did before. Many people will argue that the teams who are lower seeded nowadays are more talented relative to the top teams than those in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The other reason is that it might be the salary cap's fault. The hard cap in the NHL was introduced in 2005-06. Before the cap was implemented, 6 of the 19 President's Trophy winners won the Stanley Cup, which is 31.5% of the time, which means on average, every 3 years of the trophy's first 19 seasons, the team went on to win the Stanley Cup. But since the cap, 2 of the 21 winners went on to take home Lord Stanley. That is once every 10 years. But maybe the reason is simple. It's not a curse, it's just how hockey goes. We all know how the playoffs are sometimes. Teams run into a hot goalie that they just can't figure out, or they run into an impenetrable defense, or maybe a freight train of an offense. As the saying goes, the playoffs are just who gets hot at the right time. But at the end of the day, it's the Stanley Cup playoffs, and anything can happen.